Leonard Funk grew up in a quiet town, far removed from the chaos that would later define his life. He was just a young man when the world erupted into conflict. Yet even then, there was a sense of determination in his eyes, a drive that would soon carry him across the ocean to the battlefields of Europe. When he enlisted in the United States Army, he had no idea that his name would one day be etched into history. Basic training was brutal, testing not only his body but his mind, pushing him to the edge of endurance. Each day he learned the rhythm of discipline, the weight of responsibility, and the deadly efficiency of a soldier prepared for war. He mastered his weapons, honed his marksmanship, and trained tirelessly alongside men who would become brothers in arms. When the orders came, Leonard found himself shipped to England, the staging ground for one of the most audacious military operations in history. The tension was palpable. Every soldier knew that the coming days would define their lives, that the shores of Normandy would not welcome them with open arms. Funk, however, moved with a quiet resolve. He understood that fear was a weapon the enemy sought to wield, and he refused to let it dictate his actions. He studied the maps, listened to the briefings, and imagined himself leading his men through chaos, through fire, and into the unknown. Landing on the beaches of Normandy was unlike anything he had trained for. The roar of artillery filled the air, mingling with the screams of men and the relentless crash of waves against the shore. The sand was slick with water and blood, and every step forward felt like wading through history itself. Leonard's unit pressed on, facing machine gun fire, barbed wire, and the unyielding chaos of battle. Yet in the midst of that terror, he discovered something inside himself, an instinct to survive, to act decisively, and to protect those around him. Each decision, each movement was measured against the brutal reality of war, yet he moved with a calm precision that would later define his reputation. As the days turned into weeks, Funk found himself thrust into operations that tested courage beyond ordinary limits. Operation Market Garden would push him further, leading him into the heart of enemy territory in the Netherlands. He navigated flooded fields, crumbling bridges, and towns teeming with German soldiers. Each mission demanded split-second thinking, and mistakes could be fatal. Funk learned to anticipate the enemy, to read the slightest movement, and to act with speed that bordered on instinct. His fellow soldiers began to notice his composure under fire, the way he could take command without hesitation, turning fear into focus. Even in the deadliest moments, when the world seemed to collapse around him, Leonard Funk had a presence that steadied those around him. He moved through smoke and gunfire as if he were part of it, making decisions that saved lives and achieved objectives that others thought impossible. Every patrol, every engagement sharpened him, teaching lessons in strategy, courage, and the unpredictability of war. By the time the winter of 1944 arrived, Funk was no longer the raw recruit who had landed on Normandy's beaches. He had become a soldier forged in fire, tested by relentless combat across Europe. He understood the cost of every choice, the weight of responsibility for his men, and the value of quick thinking under pressure. His reputation grew quietly, known among comrades for his bravery and unwavering focus. Stories of Funk's decisive actions spread, but he remained humble, more concerned with the survival of his unit than personal glory. It was this combination of skill, courage, and selflessness that would prepare him for the moment that would define his legacy. In the snow-covered fields of Belgium, surrounded by danger, Leonard Funk would face a situation that seemed impossible, a test of instinct and nerve that would last less than a minute, yet mark him forever in history. But before that legendary day, it was the countless small battles, the early struggles, and the unyielding training that had shaped him, molding him into a soldier ready to confront the unimaginable with unwavering resolve. Leonard Funk's story is not just about a single heroic act. It is about the making of a hero, born in the crucible of history, tempered by relentless conflict, and destined to rise when the world demanded courage the most. The beaches of Normandy were only the beginning. Leonard Funk had survived the initial chaos, but the war was far from over. Each day brought new dangers, new decisions, and new opportunities for courage. After the landing, his unit pushed inland, moving through the French countryside that had been transformed into a maze of destruction. Towns were leveled, roads blocked by wrecked vehicles, and every corner held the possibility of ambush. Funk learned to read the terrain as carefully as the enemy. Every ditch, every farmhouse, and every tree line could conceal a deadly surprise. He observed patterns in German patrols, studied the sound of distant artillery, and learned to distinguish the subtle cues that signaled danger. The men around him relied on his calm under fire. In firefights, when panic could easily spread through a unit, Funk acted as an anchor. He directed movements, returned fire with precision, and made split-second decisions that minimized casualties. The chaos of Normandy tested him, but it also revealed his strengths. His instincts sharpened. His ability to anticipate enemy action became almost uncanny. He was learning lessons that no training could ever fully teach, lessons born in the crucible of combat. As the Allies pushed further into France, Funk's unit was called to participate in Operation Market Garden, the daring attempt to capture key bridges in the Netherlands and penetrate deep into German territory. The operation was ambitious, and failure carried catastrophic consequences. Leonard found himself in unfamiliar terrain, moving through flooded polders, weaving along fragile dikes, and confronting German soldiers who were determined and well prepared. Every step forward was a negotiation with the elements as well as the enemy. Waterlogged fields slowed movement, mud sucked at boots, and bridges were heavily defended. The tension in Market Garden was relentless. Funk witnessed firsthand the cost of miscalculation. Entire units could be pinned down for hours by machine gun fire, and mistakes were punished with death. Yet he continued to move forward, driven not by recklessness, but by discipline and a deep sense of duty. He learned to balance aggression with caution, to push when necessary, but always to protect the men under his command. Each successful advance built confidence. Each narrow escape taught humility. During the nights, when the fighting paused but danger lingered, Funk remained vigilant. German patrols could strike at any moment, and snipers were a constant threat. Sleep was a luxury, and each decision, whether to rest, to advance, or to hold position, was a calculation with lives hanging in the balance. He began to understand the psychological dimension of warfare, the way fear could paralyze or motivate, and the importance of leading by example. His courage inspired others, and his presence reassured them in ways words never could. By the time the fighting in Market Garden ended, Funk had experienced enough intensity to last a lifetime. He had faced ambushes, crossed rivers under fire, and seen comrades fall beside him. Each experience honed his instincts and his reflexes. He was no longer just a soldier following orders. He had become a leader, someone capable of taking control in moments when hesitation could mean death. He understood the enemy's mindset, the terrain, and the unpredictability of battle in a way few could. These months in Normandy and the Netherlands were more than survival. They were preparation. Funk was learning to remain calm when chaos reigned, to think clearly when others panicked, and to act decisively when every second counted. Little did anyone know that these skills, forged under fire, would soon be tested in a situation so extreme that it would defy belief. A confrontation with overwhelming odds that would take less than a minute, yet mark him forever as one of the most remarkable soldiers of World War II. The battles of Normandy and Market Garden were the crucible in which Leonard Funk's courage, leadership, and tactical genius were forged, and they would shape the man who would later face the unimaginable with nothing but resolve,
instinct, and a Thompson submachine gun.
Winter had arrived in Europe, and with it came one of the harshest and most desperate phases of the war. The Ardennes forest, thick with trees and blanketed in snow, was as much an enemy as the German soldiers who patrolled its paths. Leonard Funk and his unit moved cautiously, knowing that every step could trigger an ambush. The cold was relentless. Fingers and toes ached, weapons froze, and visibility was often reduced to a few meters through swirling snow. Yet the stakes were higher than ever. Intelligence reported a massive German offensive, and the Allies braced for the unexpected. Funk understood that survival depended not only on skill, but also on attention, adaptability, and nerves of steel. The Battle of the Bulge was chaos incarnate. German forces had struck with speed and precision, aiming to split the Allied front and recapture vital terrain. Roads were clogged with retreating units and armored vehicles, towns lay in ruins, and communications were often cut. Funk and his men navigated this chaos, moving from village to village, clearing buildings and engaging in firefights that erupted without warning. Each encounter demanded rapid decisions: suppress or flank, hold or advance, retreat or counterattack. Funk's instincts became his greatest asset, allowing him to make choices that saved lives and maintained the momentum of his unit. Snow-covered fields hid deadly traps. Mines, barbed wire, and the cold-blooded precision of German snipers made every movement a test of courage. Funk learned to interpret the terrain, spotting subtle signs of enemy presence: a displaced branch, a footprint in the snow, a glint of metal in the distance. His ability to read these clues allowed him to anticipate ambushes and act before disaster struck. It was this heightened awareness, honed over months of intense combat, that would later allow him to survive situations that would have claimed lesser soldiers. As his unit advanced toward Holzheim, the tension increased. The Germans were well equipped and heavily armed, and the village itself was a strategic point in the snow-covered Ardennes. Funk's men were exhausted, morale was stretched thin, and every soldier felt the strain of constant vigilance. Yet Leonard remained a steady presence. He encouraged his men, assessed every risk, and kept his focus sharp. He knew that hesitation could be fatal, and in his mind, preparation and courage were inseparable. Encounters with enemy soldiers became increasingly frequent. Funk engaged in skirmishes where seconds counted, reacting with precision and efficiency. These firefights were a test not just of physical skill, but of psychological endurance. Funk had seen what fear could do, and he learned to channel his own emotions into calm, deliberate action. Every encounter taught him more about the enemy, the landscape, and the human will to survive under impossible conditions. By the time they reached the outskirts of Holzheim, Funk and his men were battle-hardened, but aware that a single mistake could be deadly. The village was quiet, almost eerily so, as if the snow itself were holding its breath. But Leonard Funk knew better. He had learned that in war, calm often precedes the storm. Every instinct told him that danger lurked nearby, that enemy forces could emerge at any second. It was in this environment of frozen tension, extreme cold, and relentless pressure that Funk's true test approached. The lessons of Normandy and Market Garden had prepared him, and the grueling challenges of the Bulge had sharpened his instincts to a razor's edge. He was ready, not just to survive, but to act with decisiveness and courage that few could imagine. The events that would unfold in Holzheim were seconds away, yet the training, the experience, and the sheer resilience of Leonard Funk had set the stage for what would become one of the most extraordinary moments of heroism in World War II. The snow,
The cold, the fear, and the uncertainty all converged to create the perfect crucible for a soldier who had been forged in the unrelenting fire of battle, destined to face impossible odds with nothing but his courage, his instincts, and an unwavering resolve.
The snow lay thick across Holzheim, crisp and white, concealing the dangers that lurked beneath. Leonard Funk and his unit had been moving cautiously, fully aware that the German forces were well positioned, well armed, and ready for any intrusion. The quiet of the village was deceptive. Every soldier sensed a tension in the air, the kind that precedes a storm. Leonard's instincts, honed through Normandy, Market Garden, and the brutal winter of the Bulge, told him that something was about to happen, and he was right. Suddenly, the situation escalated faster than anyone could have imagined. 90 German soldiers emerged from the shadows, and in an instant, Funk found himself surrounded. His own men were forced to the ground, kneeling, helpless under the gaze of enemy rifles. The cold metal of an MP-40 pressed against his back was a chilling reminder that every second could be his last. Yet in that moment, Leonard Funk did something extraordinary. He laughed. Not out of arrogance, but out of sheer disbelief and a fearless defiance that stunned the enemy. The laughter broke the tension, if only for a fleeting instant, but it revealed something essential about Funk, a courage that refused to be intimidated, a mind already racing ahead to the next move. Time seemed to slow. The snow muffled the distant sounds of other skirmishes, leaving only the tense, close-in threat of the soldiers surrounding him. Funk's heart raced, but his hands were steady. His eyes scanned the formation of the enemy, noting positions, angles, and gaps. Every detail mattered. Every fraction of a second could decide life or death. In that instant, decades of training, months of combat, and countless drills converged in a single crystalline clarity. Then he acted. Funk drew his Thompson submachine gun. The weapon felt natural in his hands, as though it were an extension of himself. The first round discharged, and chaos erupted among the German soldiers. Shock froze many of them in place. Funk fired again, each burst precise, each movement deliberate. He worked methodically, using the snowbanks, the walls, and the shadows for cover. When he needed to reload, it was seamless, almost instinctual, a skill honed from countless drills that now became a matter of survival. 21 enemy soldiers fell in what would last only 45 seconds, yet in that brief span, the outcome of an entire encounter had been rewritten. Funk's men watched in disbelief as a single man turned what seemed like certain death into a stunning, decisive victory. The Germans had underestimated him, and that miscalculation had cost them dearly. Those 45 seconds were a blur of sound, movement, and adrenaline, a concentrated storm of violence and skill that would be recounted for decades. Funk's decisions were more than reflexes. He positioned himself to maximize cover and minimize exposure, choosing angles that allowed him to strike multiple targets while staying safe. He anticipated the enemy's reactions, adjusting every movement to maintain the upper hand. The combination of courage, tactical understanding, and raw instinct created a perfect storm, one that would become legendary in the annals of the army. Even as the firefight ended, the impact lingered. The remaining German soldiers were stunned, disoriented, and demoralized. Funk's men scrambled to regain their bearings, shaken but alive. Funk checked his unit, ensuring everyone was unharmed, before acknowledging the enormity of what had just occurred. It was a lesson in decisive action, in how preparation meets opportunity, and in how one individual's courage can alter the course of events in an instant. But the moment was also deeply human. Funk himself felt the weight of what had just happened, the adrenaline still coursing through his body, the faces of fallen enemies imprinted on his mind, and the realization that a single mistake could have ended it all. Yet even in that reflection, he remained composed. He had acted not out of recklessness, but from instinct, training, and a sense of responsibility to his comrades. Every life he saved that day, every enemy neutralized, was the result of a mind sharpened by months of relentless combat. The story of that day spread quickly among his unit, growing with each retelling, but Leonard Funk remained humble.
He did not see himself as extraordinary. He saw himself as a soldier fulfilling his duty. The snow, the cold, and the danger of Holzheim became forever intertwined with his name, marking him as a man who could face the impossible and prevail. That 45-second encounter was the culmination of a lifetime of preparation, the discipline of training, the lessons of earlier battles, and the unyielding resolve of a soldier forged in the fire of World War II. In the days that followed, the village would bear witness to the legend of Leonard Funk. Soldiers who saw it could hardly believe their eyes. Officers who heard the reports knew that they had witnessed something extraordinary, a demonstration of courage and skill so rare it could scarcely be replicated. And yet, for Funk, it was a moment defined not by glory, but by survival, by protecting those around him, and by the unwavering commitment to act decisively when the world demanded it most. Holzheim became a symbol of heroism, a testament to the extraordinary things a single soldier could achieve when preparation, instinct, and courage aligned. Leonard Funk's actions that day would echo through military history, remembered not as a tale of luck, but as a demonstration of what is possible when a man confronts the impossible with clarity, resolve, and unshakable bravery. The snow still lay undisturbed, but the story of what had happened in those 45 seconds would remain forever etched in memory, inspiring generations of soldiers to come.
The snow of Holzheim had long melted, and the war pressed onward, but the story of Leonard Funk's extraordinary courage remained. The 45 seconds in which he had faced 90 German soldiers and emerged victorious became more than a tale of battlefield heroics. It became a symbol of what human determination, skill, and resolve could accomplish under unimaginable pressure. Soldiers and officers alike spoke of his actions with awe, realizing that what Funk had done was not just rare, it was almost beyond belief. Recognition followed, but Funk himself remained modest. He did not see his actions as heroic in the traditional sense. To him, it was a matter of survival, of protecting his men, and of fulfilling his duty as a soldier. Yet the army saw something extraordinary, something worthy of the highest honor. Leonard Funk was awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration, reserved for those whose courage and valor transcend the ordinary. The medal was more than a symbol of personal achievement. It was a testament to the countless soldiers who fought, bled, and sacrificed alongside him. Receiving the Medal of Honor was a moment of solemn reflection. Funk understood that his story, while remarkable, was inseparable from the stories of his fellow soldiers, those who had survived and those who had fallen. He thought of Normandy with its chaotic beaches and relentless gunfire, of Market Garden with flooded fields and deadly bridges, and of the frozen forests of the Bulge, where every day was a struggle against death and the elements. Each memory reinforced a truth he had learned long before the award. Heroism is rarely about glory. It is about decisive action, courage in the face of fear, and unwavering commitment to those you lead. After the war, Funk's life returned to a quieter rhythm, yet the lessons of combat never left him. He carried the experiences of the battlefield into his daily life, understanding the fragility of existence and the value of every moment. He shared his story sparingly, knowing the few could truly comprehend the intensity of those 45 seconds in Holzheim. But when he spoke with clarity and honesty, emphasizing preparation, discipline, and courage as the forces that had allowed him to act decisively when fate demanded it. Funk's legacy extended beyond medals and recognition. Soldiers who learned of his actions drew inspiration from them, understanding that courage was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Military historians studied the incident, analyzing the combination of skill, instinct, and decision-making that had enabled him to triumph against overwhelming odds. In classrooms and training exercises, his story became an example of leadership under fire, a lesson in how one person's resolve can influence the course of events in profound ways. The Medal of Honor itself became a symbol of national pride and remembrance, but for Funk it represented something deeper. The lives preserved, the mission accomplished, and the principles of duty and honor upheld in the face of chaos. Each recounting of his actions served as a reminder that preparation meets opportunity in moments we cannot predict, and that courage is tested not in calm, but in crisis. Funk also reflected on the human cost of war. He remembered the comrades lost, the friends who had fought bravely beside him, and the enemies who had underestimated him. Each life taken, each life saved carried weight. He understood that heroism exists alongside tragedy, that acts of courage often emerge from moments of fear and despair. His perspective became a guiding principle for the men and women he encountered, teaching them not only to fight, but to lead with integrity, empathy, and awareness of the stakes. As years passed, Funk's story inspired books, lectures, and documentaries, ensuring that his actions were never forgotten. He became a living testament to what is possible when training, instinct, and courage converged. Young soldiers studied his decisions, learning the importance of awareness, decisive action, and adaptability under extreme conditions. Civilian audiences, too, were captivated, recognizing in his story the timeless qualities of bravery, resilience, and moral clarity. Even in reflection, Funk remained humble. He rarely spoke of heroism in terms of personal glory. Instead, he emphasized the shared experience of soldiers, the teamwork, and the relentless preparation that made extraordinary moments possible. He reminded those who would listen that courage is not inherent, it is cultivated, refined through practice, and tested when the stakes are highest. The Medal of Honor, while a tangible symbol, was only part of the story. The true measure of his heroism lay in the choices he made under fire, the lives he influenced, and the example he set for generations to come. Leonard Funk passed into history not merely as a soldier who survived impossible odds, but as a figure whose life embodied the principles of duty, courage, and leadership. His actions in the snow of Holzheim, his steady resolve through Normandy, Market Garden, and the Bulge, and his unwavering commitment to his comrades became a blueprint for bravery, studied and admired long after the guns fell silent. Today, the story of Leonard Funk serves as a reminder that heroism is forged in the crucible of challenge, that courage is a choice made in the heat of adversity, and that one individual, acting decisively and with honor, can leave a lasting mark on the course of history. His life reminds us that preparation, resolve, and moral clarity are the tools of extraordinary action, and that even in the darkest moments, human courage can illuminate the path forward, inspiring all who hear the story to face their own challenges with determination and integrity.